The morning sun spilled across the city like a promise, warm and bright, but inside Naira Holt's chest, everything felt cold. It was her birthday, 31 today, yet she woke with the heavy ache of a woman who had spent too many years pretending she wasn't lonely. She stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror as sunlight brushed her dark skin, highlighting the exhaustion she carefully hid beneath flawless makeup. Naira whispered to herself that today might be different, that maybe life could surprise her in a good way for once. But she didn't really believe it. And when the message came, just hours later, everything inside her cracked once more. Her blind date had canceled. On her birthday. 5 minutes before they were supposed to meet. If you're watching this and believe in kindness, hope, and second chances, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Tales to help us spread more heart-touching stories around the world. Naira sat alone in the corner booth of a sunlit cafe, trying to blink away the sting in her eyes. Her phone screen still glowed with the message. Sorry, something came up. Can't make it. Let's reschedule. She stared at it as if her disappointment could be undone by sheer will. People around her laughed, clinked glasses, and celebrated life in small ways that made her feel like an outsider. The cafe's buzzy lunchtime energy only highlighted her emptiness. She had dressed beautifully, soft peach dress, gold hoops, curls bouncing, but she felt invisible in a world where she had tried so hard to be seen. She had grown up strong because life gave her no other choice. A childhood spent bouncing between relatives who loved her but couldn't always keep her. A career built from scratch in a marketing office where she was constantly underestimated. And a heart that had learned to remain hopeful even after betrayals, breakups, and disappointments. But today, hope felt like a fragile thread she couldn't hold anymore. She tried to smile at the server who brought her a complimentary cupcake after overhearing it was her birthday. But when the server walked away, Naira sat still, fighting the quiet war inside herself, wondering how many more birthdays she would spend alone. Outside the cafe window, the day was bright and bustling, families and friends moving through their own stories. That's when she noticed a little girl in a yellow sundress pressed against the glass, staring curiously at Naira. The girl had big brown eyes, curly hair clipped with 2 sunflower barrettes, and a look of deep sadness beneath her innocent expression. Standing beside her was a tired-looking man in his late 30s, holding her small hand as they waited at the pedestrian crossing. He knelt to say something to the girl, but she looked away, her shoulders tense, as though holding back tears. Something about the little girl tugged at Naira's heart, but she looked away, embarrassed by how emotional she already was. All she wanted was for the day to end so she could go home and forget she ever hoped for something better. But fate had other plans. Minutes later, as Naira walked out of the cafe, head lowered and heart dragging behind her, she heard a small voice call out from the sidewalk. Excuse me, miss." Naira looked up. The same little girl was tugging her father's arm, pulling him toward Naira with urgency. The man, tall, calm-looking, and wearing a faded blue work shirt, looked at Naira with an apologetic smile. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "My daughter, Miri, wanted to say something." Miri stepped forward, clutching a stuffed rabbit to her chest. Her voice trembled. "Did someone hurt your feelings?" Naira blinked, surprised and embarrassed that her sadness had been so visible. "Oh no, sweetheart. I'm okay. Just having one of those days." She forced a smile, but the little girl didn't buy it. She stared up at Naira with an intensity only children possessed. "I saw you sitting alone," she whispered. "You looked like you needed someone." Those words hit Naira harder than she expected. Her throat tightened, and she looked away, unable to hide the shimmer in her eyes. Miri reached up and gently touched Naira's hand. "And I was wondering." She paused, looking back at her dad as if asking permission. He nodded gently, his eyes warm but clearly weighed with his own sorrows. Then Miri looked back at Naira and asked the question that shattered everything and began something new all at once. Can you be my new mom?" The world fell silent. Cars passed. Pigeons fluttered nearby. But nothing felt real except the trembling little girl staring up at Naira with both hope and heartbreak. Naira knelt slowly to meet her level, stunned and overwhelmed. "Honey," she whispered, "why would you ask me that?" Miri took a shaky breath. "Because you looked sad, like me. And because I lost my mom last year. And I keep hoping someone kind will show up, someone who looks like you. Naira felt something inside her break open, an old, hidden ache mixing with a surge of protectiveness she didn't understand. Tears warmed her eyes. "Oh, sweetheart. I'm so sorry." Miri's father stepped forward. "Her mom passed in an accident," he said quietly. "We've had a tough year. She doesn't usually talk to strangers. I hope she didn't overwhelm you." Naira shook her head quickly. "No, not at all." The man introduced himself as Kellen Ward, a mechanic who worked long hours and struggled to balance grief and fatherhood. He explained how Miri had become withdrawn, barely spoke to people, and rarely smiled anymore. But now, standing beside Naira, the little girl's small hand stayed wrapped around hers like she had found something safe. As they talked on the sidewalk, Naira felt an unexpected warmth spreading through her. This chance encounter felt like sunlight breaking through after a long, cold winter. Kellen offered to buy Naira a birthday coffee as thanks for being kind to Miri, and they walked to a nearby park, the afternoon glowing with soft golden light. At the park, Miri insisted on sitting beside Naira on the bench, leaning her head gently against Naira's arm. Kellen sat across from them, watching with quiet surprise. "She never does that," he said softly. "Not with anyone." Naira felt emotion build inside her. She hadn't felt this visible, this wanted. In years, the three of them spent the afternoon talking, laughing gently, and sharing stories. Naira learned that Miri loved painting and sunflowers, that Kellen made the best blueberry pancakes, and that they both missed the woman who had held their world together. Kellen learned that Naira spent her birthdays alone, that she had been rejected just hours earlier, and that beneath her strong exterior was a heart that longed for connection. As the sun dipped a little, Miri tugged Naira's sleeve. "Can we see you again?" she asked quietly, afraid of rejection. Naira exchanged a look with Kellen, who offered a hopeful yet hesitant smile. "Only if you want to," he added softly. For the first time that day, Naira felt her heart lift. "I'd love that," she said. Over the next weeks, life gently transformed. Naira visited them often. At the park, at their little apartment filled with sunflower art, at the mechanic shop where Miri loved to hand her dad tools. Miri began calling Naira Miss Naira, then NYNY. And eventually, one magical Sunday morning, Mommy Naira, spoken shyly as she hugged her tightly. Naira cried in Kellen's arms that day, overwhelmed by love she never expected to find. Kellen and Naira grew closer too, slowly but beautifully. They shared long conversations after Miri fell asleep, their connection blooming like something fragile yet destined. One evening, as the sunset painted the sky orange and gold, Kellen held Naira's hands and whispered, "You walked into our lives on the day you thought you were alone. But maybe you were always meant to find us." And in that moment, Naira understood something profound. Sometimes the worst days hide the beginnings of the best miracles. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Tales. Your support helps us bring more real, emotional stories to life. Before the ending, I have one special request. Comment, "Kindness wins," if you believe that love always finds a way to in the months that followed. Naira didn't just become part of their lives. She became their heart. And when her next birthday arrived, this time she wasn't alone in a cafe. She was surrounded by balloons, messy blueberry pancakes, and a little girl who proudly handed her a handmade card that read, "Thank you for choosing us." Naira hugged Miri tightly, tears falling freely. "No," she whispered. "Thank you for finding me."